Let's talk some NCAA baseball super regional action. The Tennessee Volunteers, the Arkansas Razorbacks, the main event of the weekend. These two programs have been on a collision course for a while, and now they're going to collide with a trip to Omaha on the line. John Reed, Sam Beard, a little YouTube FANRUN TV exclusive. Sam, how are you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling good. It's been a rocky, 6-ish weeks of the season for Tennessee. And then over the last, I would say 2 to 3, Tennessee's really turned things around and has given you a lot of life, a lot of positivity as a fan, a lot of things to be excited about. And I think you're going to figure out if those were real feelings that you could have, or if you were kind of talking yourself into Tennessee making a big postseason push. I don't think there's any better opponent to try and figure that out against than Arkansas.
Well, I disagree there. I would love to have played a bunch of other teams instead of Arkansas. Like, I do have respect for Dave Van Horn and the Razorbacks. They have either the second or third best program in the SEC and in the country. It's not Tennessee, who's up here at number 1, but like LSU and Arkansas, they're somewhere right here between 2 and 3, depending on how you value regular season success versus postseason success. Of course, with the Tigers winning 1 national championship during that run, and Arkansas, of course, just absolutely gagging all over themselves in the big moments. But this will be a test of which trend you believe in. Do you believe in ghosts that haunt a program like Arkansas? Do you believe in a championship killer mentality like Tennessee has had over the last 5 years, where they pretty much have won big in all of the big moments? 2022 Notre Dame aside, Tennessee has come through an awful lot. And like you said, Tennessee should be going to Fayetteville feeling like they're playing better baseball than they were even, 2-3 weeks ago when Tennessee went down there and lost a series to Arkansas. These teams just played 3 weeks ago. I think Tennessee's gotten better. I feel better about their team than I did at the time. Is it real? Is it fake? We're going to find out in just a couple days.
Yeah, and I think you can, for as much as we've talked about Tennessee kind of throughout the season, maybe cracking under pressure and not delivering in some of those big moments, it's a team in Arkansas who's done nothing but crack under pressure in those moments. And so Tony Vitello's talked about this team maybe being a little too emotional at times and having to reel some of those emotions in. And to your point, the last couple of weeks, Tennessee getting some positive momentum, playing some better baseball, playing clean. It does feel like you're kind of harnessing that, and you're going out and you're playing loose and you're playing free. And I can't help but think that this is going to be an Arkansas team that probably is going to be a little bit wound up tight with those results that they've had in the postseason, and knowing that this team on paper has been a little bit different than those in years past. And it does feel like this is kind of that breakthrough roster for Arkansas. I'm really wondering if that pressure starts to mount and starts to crack them at some point.
Yeah, something I've noticed just about this iteration of the Razorbacks is it does seem like they have more offense than they did in the last couple years. I like to keep an eye on my enemies, and over the last couple years, every time Arkansas would lose a big game, I'd go to their replies on Twitter and see a bunch of calls to fire their hitting coach. Seems like those have kind of gone by the wayside this year. They seem like a better offense.
Much better offense for sure. I mean, they back that up in a lot of statistical categories from the year before. 87 homers in 24, 120 this year. Their batting average goes up from 271 to 313. They went from 401 runs scored to 519, and their slugging percentage up from 453 to 560. So improvement across the board. They've gone out there and overhauled that roster a little bit and really said, hey, offense wins games at the end of the day. We can't just rely on this pitching staff that's been so good for us. They've definitely gone and done that, and even their regional stats back that up. A lot of their guys in their lineup are pretty hot rolling into this matchup.
Yeah, they didn't really sweat at all, it seemed like, against Creighton. It seemed like they took care of business there. The home run stat jumps out a little bit. Like, it seems, like maybe they saw Tennessee and all their success and said, hey, let's just go hit home runs. Seems to work for the Vols pretty good. and they've copied that. And this year, I mean, I don't know exactly what the numbers say, but it feels like the conversation in college baseball has been fewer home runs. I've seen conspiracies about dead balls and different bats, blaming the bats. Meanwhile, Arkansas, going up a big number on their home runs.
Yeah, no, I mean, they have definitely gone out there and put kind of those things to bed a little bit, and we'll see if they can continue to deliver in the postseason. Those moments get brighter. And, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They weren't playing the hardest competition in that regional either. So I'm interested to kind of see, did maybe a weekend in the regionals kind of lull you to sleep, and then you go in here and you get some elite level arms, a top 5 pick in Liam Doyle, a guy in Marcus Phillips who's got all the talent in the world to be a top 1 or 2 round pick, and even some of those guys out of your bullpen that have really started to emerge, a guy like a Brandon Arvidsson coming in there. How are they going to be able to kind of adapt after maybe having a bit of an off weekend, being able to play some softer competition with North Dakota State and Creighton?
Yeah, from a Tennessee perspective, if you're looking for positivity, if you're looking for things to make you feel good about going back to Omaha for the 4th time in 5 years, at least I look and say, okay, Brandon Arvidsson, it kind of started figuring it out the last time Tennessee played Arkansas. He had a decent little outing there, had kind of started figuring things out and starting to get his strikeouts up. But I feel like his confidence has only grown. I know he wasn't perfect against Wake Forest, but he gave you a chance to win that game. And the stuff was still moving. He was still getting strikeouts. Same for A.J. Russell, who I think, now Tennessee has 2 legitimate arms. You add Dylan Lloyd to that mix, in terms of guys that can eat up multiple innings if they have to. But also, I look, no offense if he's listening, personally, if you listen to my radio show, I've kind of been looking, and look, this isn't like a super unique or hot take. Tennessee had game 3 problems. I thought it was pretty telling that Coach V, my close personal friend Tony Vitello, didn't pitch Tegan Coons this weekend. I don't think Tegan Coons is ready for the moment, and I don't think you'll see him this weekend either. And I think, that gives way to some better arms and some guys maybe more equipped to handle these pressure situations. And then, the big, beautiful elephant in the room is Liam Doyle. He had a chance to drop the hammer right on Arkansas's head, when Tennessee went down there. Marcus Phillips won you game 1. The offense mostly won you game 1, going out and scoring 10 runs. But, you had a chance in game 2 on Friday for your ace, the best pitcher in the country. I think it's fair to say the best pitcher in the country had a chance to go out there and win, and he got knocked around. And, I've seen some people talking about the blister and things that were bothering him with his hand, and maybe that's what happened. Look, I'm going to say it. He was tipping his pitches. Arkansas knew what was coming. He was giving that away. He's corrected it. I think you saw that against Miami of Ohio. I think you saw that against Wake Forest. Not comparing them to an Arkansas lineup, not even saying Liam Doyle is going to go out there and absolutely, shut down the Razorbacks. But I don't think he's going to go out there and get knocked around like he did the last time they played him. I think they kind of figured out why he was tipping his pitches, what was happening, and I think he's found a way to kind of fix that. So I expect Liam Doyle to go down there and strut his ass and look like the guy that was, getting headlines and making Chipper Jones mad on Monday night when he was shutting down Wake Forest. I expect him to be more, back to the All-American SEC, pitcher of the year type of guy.
Yeah, there's not too many things that worry me about Liam Doyle throwing him out there. I know that recency bias would tell you he hasn't had maybe some of his best starts, but I'm going to go with the season-long sample size that he's given us. And even in the dugout in the mid-game interview with Vitello against Wake Forest, he's saying, he's going to bring it to you every day on the mound. What he brings to a locker room and what he does off the field is even more special. And so I'm just going to bank on that talent still being able to show up. And I think even getting slapped around at Arkansas, I think that's going to be a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Hopefully, you don't get the, hey, let's not try and do 2 starts in one type of thing. But I do think he can kind of harness that energy that he's going to have, and he's going to have that little chip on his shoulder. And I've got a lot of confidence in Liam Doyle. The fact that you got a good outing from Marcus Phillips the last time you were in Fayetteville gives you some confidence. And frankly, he's just continued to stack quality starts kind of ever since then. So I feel pretty good about those top two guys. And you talk about that Sunday role with Tegan Coons, and maybe that is a guy like an AJ Russell can kind of slide himself into that. And frankly, after that, you've got three guys that are probably in the top 2 to 3 rounds of the draft as your starting pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the way the regional worked out, it set up and allowed you to go a different route with your game 4 starter, and then all of a sudden Coons gets lost in the mix. But like game 3, you had a chance to throw him out there and you didn't. So like, I do think you'll see a different look than you did the last time Tennessee and Arkansas played. Let's look at it from a different side. Tennessee's bats against Arkansas's pitching. I feel like the bats showed up in the regular season series. I feel like the bats went out there and quite frankly scored enough runs to win 2 out of those 3 games. Of course, they didn't. How do you see it? How do you think they match up? Do you think Arkansas's pitchers kind of out of character gave up runs? Do you think this lineup should be able to kind of go out there and score again in the supers? What do the numbers tell you?
Yeah, I feel like the regular season matchup down in Fayetteville was kind of a turning point out of that deep darkness that we had in the middle of the season there, and losing 5 out of 6 SEC series, being able to kind of turn around and really be able to have a positive performance at the plate down there in Fayetteville. It really felt like that was kind of the turning point of this season. And I think you've continued to be able to stack positive ABs in all of your series ever since then. And I got to imagine that confidence is going to be able to carry over. I think it's an Arkansas pitching staff that it's got talent in their starters, but I think you have seen at times through Arkansas, you kind of get into those starters and you're able to get into their bullpen. I think they become a lot more vulnerable. So positive starts, early starts, I think are going to be the key in this one, and kind of running some of those starters out of there and forcing them to go into their pen. Not necessarily rocket science, what I'm saying there, but when you talk about postseason baseball, not being able to kind of let their aces go out there and throw the nice 6-7 inning games, that's what you got to be able to avoid here.
I'm worried about the middle of Tennessee's lineup.
Oh, yeah.
I'm worried about the middle of Tennessee's lineup. Hunter Inslee is a champion. Hunter Inslee is a Vol legend. He is stamped and approved. I'm not worried about him in the field. I'm not worried about the moment being too big for him. I'm just worried that he might be slumping at the worst time for Tennessee, because I do think they need somebody at that 3 or 4 spot to step up. Now, Dalton Bargo was great the last time Tennessee went down to Arkansas. That was maybe his best series, and definitely at least his best game in that game 1 Thursday victory. But the Knoxville Regional was not kind to him.
Not at all. Hunter Inslee goes 3 for 15 in the regional. Dalton Bargo goes 1 for 16. Luckily, Dean Curley made you avoid just absolute disaster. He went 4 for 11 with a homer and 7 RBIs, but then that 6th spot in Reese Chapman, he goes 2 for 13 as well. So, yeah, you've got a problem in that middle of the order in terms of just slumping at the wrong time. And it's honestly, I feel like it's a little bit too late to kind of change some of the dynamics of that. I think if you're Tony Vitello and what he's done historically, I feel like he's just a guy that rides with his guys and hopes that it kind of turns around in the right times. And it doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence heading into an Arkansas Super Regional, knowing that middle of the lineup isn't exactly producing. I think you got to just kind of hold out hope that they're going to be able to flip that switch.
Well, you put it nicely with your regional stats. You put it nicely with your regional stats. Taking into account the Miami of Ohio game, because I'm looking more so at just Cincinnati in the Wake Forest games. Dalton Bargo was 0 for 12. Hunter Inslee was 1 of 11. You add that up together, Sam, you get bad.
Really, really bad.
By my count, 1 for 23. 1 for 23. Now Inslee was able to draw a couple walks and whatever, but like your 3 and 4 hitter has to be better, because I do think it feels mean calling it a poor man's version, but like they're not Christian Moore and they're not Blake Burke. but Gavin Keelan and Andrew Fisher have been pretty damn good. You know what I mean? Like, they have been really, really solid at the top of your lineup. They have been superstar transfers. I do shudder to kind of think about what this team would look like had Tennessee not struck absolute gold in the transfer portal with Fisher, Keelan, and Liam Doyle, but they did. They hit gold on all three. And look, that's a part of Tony Vitello's culture. Guys want to come play here. By the way, did you see the rumor going around the internet today?
No.
There's a pretty big rumor going around the internet today about a certain superstar in the SEC that has the same name as a legendary GOAT basketball player that has apparently reached out to Tennessee because he's interested in coming to play in the big leagues. That's what's going on the internet on the insider portion of it.
I did see like a Sintel like account a few days ago say that he had already entered the transfer portal. So I feel like maybe that was tipping some information off.
Sometimes those guys are just kind of getting out there ahead and reporting just enough, but it's going around the internet that a certain superstar with the same name as a basketball superstar is looking around and interested in Tennessee. So something to keep an eye on there. But look, guys want to come play with Tony Vitello, despite what losers like Chipper Jones says, or Larry. I'm not calling a grown-ass man Chipper. Larry Jones, despite what he says, players want to play for coaches that are fine with passion and rubbing it in a little bit. So, like, that's a part of the new equation in college baseball. You do get some superstars in the transfer portal, and Tennessee found maybe the three best, or at least three of the best. I know Keelan wasn't quite as good in SEC play after his injury, but again, feels mean calling him a poor man's Blake Burke and Christian Moore, but that's just how damn good, Christian Moore and Blake Burke were. But I trust those guys to perform. Their numbers in the last three games of the regional, good. Those guys came through. They have to have some help, though, at 3 and 4. Inslee and Bargo have to be better. Personally, I would move Bargo down the lineup. I would maybe move him all the way down to 6 and move Curley and Levi Clark up a little bit. I think that would be justifiable at this point. But again, the last time Bargo was down at Arkansas, he fared pretty well. He hit the 2 home runs in game 1. He hit another home run in game 2. He did go 0 for 5 in the last game when we needed to get him there. But he went out there and showed some powers. He had a good series in Fayetteville. So I do expect him to rise to the occasion now. And again, we talked about the difference in these lineups. We talked about the difference in these teams. Tennessee does have guys that this will not be the biggest games of their career. You know what I mean? Like Tennessee has Dean Curley, Hunter Inslee, Bargo, Chapman, those guys, some guys out in the bullpen as well who have pitched in World Series games, championship games. Arkansas doesn't really have that. If you believe in having been there before and having done that before, Tennessee does have the advantage. The last time Arkansas hosted a super regional, because I know they had a great record, Sam, they broke their program record, 35-4 at home. It's good. That's great. 35-4 is fantastic. None of those games are going to have the stakes that this weekend has. And the last time that these 10,000, 11,000, ever many fans get there, and people are saying it's going to be the hardest ticket to get in Arkansas baseball history, or at least recent history, no matter how crazy it's going to be in there. A lot of those fans remember the last time they had a super regional in Fayetteville, and that was 2021. And you know what they did in 2021? They gagged like a bunch of choking dogs. And, they failed to live up to the moment. And, maybe one of the biggest, for my money, their choke against NC State was worse than Tennessee's choke against Notre Dame, because they won their game 1 of that super regional 21-2. And then finished it in game 3, only scoring 2 damn runs. So I'd like an explanation from how they went from 21 runs to 2 runs when all the chips were down. They can't blame a worn out pitching staff, because again, it was a super regional, not Omaha. They should have had some. The bat should have been there. They should have been good to go. It's not like NC State's pitching in game 1 was just, a ragtag group. They lit up NC State's ace for 21 runs and then turned around and scored 2 runs 2 days later to gag like a bunch of dogs.
For as much as Arkansas fans want to kind of pound their chest about how Tennessee's going to be walking into a raucous environment and they're not going to be able to survive this, Baum-Walker Stadium and all that comes with that, I do feel like Tennessee, hey, you get off to an early start. Liam Doyle's maybe dealing. You're getting some production from those guys in the lineup. I think you're going to start to hear some moans and groans. And I feel like for as much as, what we saw last weekend with our own guys, Tony Vitello and Andrew Fisher, kind of sending that call out to the fans saying, hey, we need that energy. This place is different whenever we've got Lindsey Nelson rocking. I think you can kind of take that away from Baum-Walker if you get off to some good starts. And so I think if you kind of get the crowd working against them, I think that team that has had a lot of positive momentum, that could kind of halt real quick.
I am a big believer in negative energy. Like, I don't think every home field advantage is actually a home field advantage. I truly feel that way. You saw it in the NBA playoffs with the Knicks and kind of how that crowd gets a little bit tight because guess what? The Knicks haven't won an NBA championship since 1970. And maybe like 72, 73, but like 1970. Let's just call it 50 years. When things go bad, guess what? They expect things to go bad. The Red Sox had it for 100 years where their crowd would get tight. Tennessee, on the football side of things, seen it from both sides. When things go bad against Florida, people go into their shells. People get worried like, oh, God, the Florida boogeyman is here. And on the flip side, when we play Kentucky in football, Kentucky goes on the side and you have that mental edge on them. I fully believe in that. And Arkansas baseball is one of those fan bases that has not seen their team break through and win big moments. They haven't seen it. They've seen a lot of pain. Again, they were a foul ball away from a championship, and they had three guys get there and not be able to make a play. Until they prove otherwise, they have loser in their DNA. They're not losers. They've won a lot of games. Again, second or third best program in the country. Not Tennessee. Tennessee's number one. But they've choked. They've gagged. Until they break through, they have loser in their DNA. And that loser can come out at any moment. And the thing is, all 10,000 fans that'll be in the stadium this weekend know that deep down. So like you said, Sam, if game one, Tennessee comes out, scores some runs early, that's going to put some pressure on Arkansas. If Tennessee wins game one and just theoretically has Liam Doyle, the pitcher of the year, the only pitcher up for the Golden Spikes Award, I know Arkansas fans can lean on having touched him up a couple weeks ago, but I think deep down they will be very, very petrified of that psycho coming in there and absolutely shutting them down. I think not every home field atmosphere is actually an advantage, and I think Arkansas fits into that under that umbrella, under that mold.
So kind of to that point, do you feel like building on that momentum potentially, are you of the belief like, hey, let's go out and throw Liam Doyle game one and try and get a win under your belt? Or is it, hey, Marcus Phillips has been putting together some good starts, let's try and get a win here, and then we can really shut the door with a Liam Doyle in a game two?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I'm not Tony Vitello. Yes, we are close personal friends, but he's smarter than me when it comes to this stuff, and also like he knows better about how his pitchers feel. I don't think Liam Doyle got touched because he went second in the rotation. I don't think if he pitched on Saturday, he'd get touched because he didn't go on his normal Friday day. I don't believe in that type of stuff, but I know some baseball people do. I know superstition is very important in that sport, and I know routine is very important in that sport. When Marcus Phillips won game one of the series, it was on Thursday. You know what I mean? Like it was a Thursday, and Doyle got to stay on Friday. Personally, after Doyle having to pitch, against Wake Forest and close it out after pitching 104 pitches a couple days before, I would like for him to have an extra day of rest. And along those same lines, I would like to have him available, in a do or die game for Tennessee or a kill game for Tennessee where they can go out and end the season. I think having him for game two feels better. And then you can get into the whole bullpen thing too of like, hey, you could save your bullpen in game one you could throw Phillips, let him kind of use the bullpen, then theoretically save some of those guys in game two, assuming Doyle is going to go 7 or 8 innings, which would give you more options for game 3. I look at it from that angle as well. But to answer your question, I don't really have a preference. I think I want to do whatever Liam Doyle and Marcus Phillips and Tony Vitello and Frank Anderson decide. I think those guys have earned the benefit of the doubt. Do you lean one way or the other?
I do, honestly. I'd like to see Marcus Phillips in game 1, and similar to your thinking about just the do or die, or you can go kill him. I think the Cannon Peebles suspension is something that hasn't necessarily been noted, and Marcus Phillips has a little bit more experience with Stone Lawless catching him than a Liam Doyle does. I don't think that necessarily changes Liam Doyle's approach if he is to pitch that game 1, but I think that you talk about continuity and maybe some guys in baseball that like to kind of have their routine, nailed down. I do feel like Marcus Phillips and Stone Lawless may be on a little bit better page than a Lawless and a Doyle are.
Now, do you think I've seen that talking point, and you're right, we haven't addressed it yet. Good call by you, because talked about guys with championship DNA. Cannon Peebles had some big moments in Omaha and on that run last year, and he'll have to miss game 1. It feels to me that storyline of familiarity, I think, matters more in Major League Baseball, where catchers are having to call their own game for the most part, versus college, where they're kind of, communicating on their watch, and Frank Anderson sitting there doing it. So I don't know if that matters as much. Plus, it's not like Liam Doyle's never met him.
Right.
And he did pitch to him at the end of the game, the 9th inning against Wake Forest. So I've seen that, and it's fine with me if they want to go Phillips for that reason. I won't argue with it, but I also don't know if it actually matters to Doyle. Yeah, because Frank Anderson and Tony Vitello, they'll be in the dugout calling the game.
Absolutely. I think that's a very fair point as well.
We pretty much aren't going to get anything from Stone Lawson when it comes to him at the plate, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think you have a big enough sample size to really trust that, and especially when you get into this moment. I know that when he was kind of called on, kind of those midweeks after Cannon Peebles had kind of taken that weekend rotation over, you saw Lawless in the midweeks, and I feel like he put together some pretty good plate appearances. But there's a big difference, between your Belmonts of the world and your Arkansas of the world and stuff like that, and then Indiana State or something like that. So, and
just a midweek game versus a super regional in front of 10,000 fans. Like we said, the main event of super regional weekend, a series that could easily be, the championship series in any given year. These are 2 of the 4 or 5 best teams. They might be number 1 and number 2, honestly, when it comes to talent and coaching and all of that. Again, you can throw LSU in the mix if you want to. Don't go crying about it, Tiger fans. I know you have only, gotten to go to Omaha once in the last 7 or 8 years, and you're desperate for your attention and validation and all that. Yeah, I get it. But Tennessee, Arkansas is the main event, and it's the atmosphere is going to be big. That also matters for Stone Lawless, right? The pitching goes up, but also I don't want a guy pressing at the plate, and him not having these big reps makes me pretty much write him off as a 0. And anything he does do, if he gets on base, it feels like complete house money.
Yeah, I'll frame it this way. I'm not expecting anything from Stone Lawless at the plate. I do expect something from Cannon Peebles at the bottom of that lineup. And yeah, I think to your point, maybe you're just trying to get some Cal Stark-like outings from Stone Lawless, where it's hey, just do your job defensively, make sure you're playing a clean game. Don't hurt us on the defensive end, because we don't really need you to help us on the offensive end necessarily.
Go through, give me some players to watch. Give me some players you think Tennessee might struggle with. Give me some strengths, some weaknesses of Arkansas that you think the audience needs to be aware about.
Yeah, the 3, 4, 5 hitters for Arkansas were absolutely lethal during their regional weekend. Logan Maxwell went 4 for 12, 2 homers and 3 RBIs. Ryder Helfrich, their catcher, has been on fire to end the season. He went 6 for 11 with 3 homers and 6 RBIs. And then Cam Koziel in that 5 spot, 6 for 13, 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 15 total bases in that regional weekend.
So that's without even getting to their best player.
Yes, that is without Wahiwa Aloy. Exactly. Yeah. So the 2, 3, 4, 5 are absolutely lethal for Arkansas. I do think it tapers off towards the bottom of that lineup. Wahiwa's brother, Cahillo, didn't exactly have his strongest weekend in the regionals, but yeah, the heart of that Arkansas order is hot at the very right time.
Okay. Anybody on the pitching side of things? Because I feel like, we touched up their pitching, like I said, pretty good. Zach Root didn't fare great against us. I'm not scared of going up against him. Anybody stand out to you?
Yeah, Zach Root did put together a pretty nice regional performance, went 6 innings, had 7 strikeouts. Gage Woods, also a guy to look for. I would say a guy that we talked to from Arkansas today on Under Review, I would say Parker Coyle out of their bullpen's a bit of an X factor. Missed a good portion of their season, 6 SEC series, had a back injury, a lefty. Andrew Ellis today on our show kind of compared him to Kirby Connell, a little bit of that off-speed type of guy, not the power throwing guy, but he's got good stuff. To me, that's kind of their X factor out of the bullpen. So, like I said earlier, if you can kind of run off their starting pitching, their bullpen tapers off a little bit, but they're going to be relying on Parker Coyle, Gabe Gackle, guys like that, Landon Beitelgeuse as well.
Gabe Gackle?
Not some great names. You talk about good baseball names. I don't think Arkansas has a whole lot of them.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. Arkansas represent the nerds. And the name Gabe Gackle, no offense to him if he's listening, sums that up pretty properly. Arkansas nerds, Dave Van Horn, the purity of the game, the play of the game the right way. The crowd that hates fun, they are rooting hard for Arkansas, which to me ramps up the pressure, excuse me, of this series. Not to be dramatic, Sam, but the soul of college baseball is on the line this weekend. Good versus evil. You can decide who you think is good, who you think is evil. Tennessee has been wearing the villain cap for a long time, so I'm fine with calling them the evil. That's fine. They're also way cooler. And you're going to have a lot of nerds hoping and praying that Tennessee gets humbled this weekend, which to me, you know, it takes this series from a must-win to I'm going to do bad things to myself type of series if we lose. I want this one badly. It's not championship or bust for this team. It hasn't felt that way. I think a logical take most of the year is just make super regionals. You know, that's a better title defense than anybody else has had this decade. So I think Tennessee accomplished a goal in a sorts of doing that. But then you get to the super regional and like no one's going to line up with you and scare you. Even being at Arkansas, the line is essentially a coin flip. You know, Arkansas, I believe, -130, Tennessee +100, even money to win the series. We'll basically call it a coin flip. Arkansas slightly favored. Like you could stomach losing to this. It's not either team really choking, but just giving the opposing fan base the leg up on you makes this feel really big. And then you add in, like I said, all the nerds and the soul of college baseball and the play the right way. Don't showboat. Don't tease your opponents. Don't place your bat very nice and gently and let the bat boy get it. And you walk to first base. That crowd, the Larry Joneses of the world, I don't want to give them an inch and have them a chance to humble Tennessee at all.
Yeah, and you talk about like being kind of that unprecedented defending national championship team. Like I do think that's something that you've already put yourself at the top of the college baseball landscape with that national title. I think you can only just improve that if you go, hey, we won a national title and you made it to Omaha the next year. There's not a lot of people that can say that. And so I think, it's not, I don't want to say losers mentality, just be like, oh, I'm good with the super regional, but you're kind of here on the precipice of making some more history with Tennessee. And so to me, I feel like that's even more motivation for this squad going into this weekend.
Yeah, look, you might as well go do it now that you're here. Right. I mean, hell, you had to go to Arkansas. You might as well win. And then if you get to Omaha, they're the 1, 2, and 3 national seeds will already be knocked out. You might as well go win it all at that point. Like, so, I think Florida did that in 18, 19. I think they won, then made it back to Omaha. They came up short in terms of course, repeating. They didn't win the championship, but it's been 6 or 7 years, and, the champions of this decade have all kind of fallen on their face. Arkansas wouldn't really know what that's like, defending a national championship. They don't have one. They kind of know what falling on their face is like, but you said it. Don't want to sound like loser mentality, but Tennessee,
heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. But I keep seeing people throw around the phrase house money, and I just don't agree with it. I don't feel that way heading into this. This feels like a very, very important series. Can you sit back and say, oh, well, still a good season. We won a championship the year before. Yeah, of course you can. It's not actually going to make you feel that much better. It's still going to sting. It's still going to sting.
I think this also taps into kind of that underdog mentality that Tony Vitello built this program on a little bit. And now you're kind of at that mountaintop. And, to quote Dan Campbell, talking after their playoff loss, saying, yeah, we've been eating nice steaks for a while. We need to get back to the moldy bread type of thing. I do think this is kind of an opportunity to get back into that underdog villain role that Tennessee liked to play back in the day. I think you can kind of capitalize on that.
If I'm Tony Vitello, I disagree just a little bit. Your premise, I think, is right, but I disagree with the wording a little bit.
Okay,
because I don't see it as like getting back in the underdog role. Because I don't think Tennessee, I don't think Tony Vitello, I don't think Liam Doyle and those guys will ever view themselves as being underdogs. But it's back in bleep you mode. It's back with Tennessee against the world type of thing. Like that's the mentality I think they have, and I want them to embrace going into Arkansas. And I hope they go in there thinking like, hey, we are here. We are the main event. We are the Heatles with LeBron James when they would go on the road and like, hey, these people are here to see us. We're going to walk in and take over this stadium. We're the winners. We're going to break their hearts. We're the champs. Like that's the mentality. Bleep everybody. We're here. We're going to win. That's what we do. So again, I think your premise is right. But again, I don't think Tony Vitello and the boys are doing the whole rah-rah, nobody believes in us speech. It's just bleep everybody. Let's go do what we do.
I like the us against the world that you said a little bit better, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Any final thoughts as we wrap this bad boy up? Predictions, thoughts, key players.
I still feel like Tennessee can go out there and do this thing. To me, the momentum portion of it and just the pressure that Arkansas has going for them, I think that's going to mount for them. And the bottom of the lineup that Tennessee's had recently, to me, is a huge positive development. What Manny Marin has done has given me so much more confidence in being able to kind of flip this lineup.
He's been nails, man. He's been nails. Kind of like how Dean Curley rose to the moment last year as a freshman. Yeah. It feels like, man, he's doing that thing right now.
I like Tennessee to go win this thing. Maybe I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid, but I'm looking to have a hog roast on Monday afternoon, John.
I don't think there's any reason for any Tennessee supporter to doubt Tennessee in this moment. Like, I don't think there's any reason other than just home field, sure, and the fact you want Arkansas to beat Tennessee. That's the only thing you would point to as far as I'm concerned, because nothing you've seen with your eyeballs should make you think that Arkansas is going to beat Tennessee in a big moment. At least that's how I feel. Like I said, if you're an Arkansas fan, I completely understand with you thinking that you're going to win. I have no issue with that. You're supposed to feel that way. If you're somebody else, either you're rooting against Tennessee because you don't like them, or you just, value and you can't get past the recency bias of just a couple weeks ago. Like I said, I think we're going to get a different Liam Doyle. I think this Tennessee team not necessarily has flipped a switch, but I think they're going to be playing with a lot more confidence and rise to the occasion. So I agree. I think Tennessee wins the series, and I think they go to Omaha. And hell, at that point, Sam, if they go back to Omaha, I think they should win it all.
Let's go hunt some hogs.
Do it with me on the way out. We need a YouTube thumbnail. That'll be good.